Well, welcome along again. We're here to record ShrimpNet. We're doing this on a Wednesday night. We're doing it early because we're all busy on Thursdays. Not forever, but sometimes it happens. So we might be out a bit earlier this week. We might not. We don't know. And more importantly, we don't really care. So tonight or today, wherever you're listening, we're approaching the Doncaster game. We're going to chat a little bit about shall we say, enriching performance against a very, very decent Gillingham side. We're joined obviously by Joel and myself, the wonderful Mexican shirt wearing James Wakefield from the board. Who's the shirt, James? Tell us.
This is Unam Pumas from Central Mexico.
Unam Pumas. That's a nice kit, by the way. And we're also, our guest star tonight is the wonderful half Peruvian, half Colombian shirt wearing Tom Collins in his new wonderful little office. Show us your shirt and tell us who, Tom.
Well, this is fits the moment. This is a Colombian shirt I picked up when I was doing my tour of South America from a club called Millonarios, which means millionaires for those that can translate. So having been to a game with a fantastic atmosphere, team from Bogota. So there we go.
So let's hope that our Sikh friends are watching this, thinking, well, we're millionaires. So that's a good portent.
It was a subtle way of coming by us.
Yeah, quite right. So anyway, thanks for listening or watching. Thanks for the feedback that you gave us last week. It is nice to be back. And obviously, we'll start with the Gillingham game. Tom, I was waxing lyrical about the side that they put together and the squad that they put together last week. And then Friday, they announced Bradley Dack signing as well, who, as we all know, was on silly money at Sunderland for 12 months. And he's a star of Stage Screen and Housewives of Cheshire because he's going out with or married to somebody whose name escapes me, who's very famous. But anyway. But in the end, not too disappointed with losing, but not too disappointed with the performance. That's just me. What was your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, we were chatting, yourself and Joel were chatting pre-game, not massively confident after the first two competitive games. The first game at Walsall, which was fairly flat, and then the League Cup, which is a bit of a nothing game, but there wasn't much positive to take. I think we're generally all fairly glass half full, but I came away feeling pretty down, even though it's very early on in the season, with massive caveats that we are early on, new squad and all that kind of things that we like to say. But came into the fixture feeling fairly downbeat. But at the end result, even though a 1-0 loss, I actually came away feeling very encouraged. Thought that, the Gillingham squad that put together, they will be there or thereabouts right at the top of the league. I would imagine their budget would be 2.5, even 3 times the size of our budget, with an embarrassment of riches. And I didn't really see much evidence that they were any better side than us. I just thought that we're looking a bit toothless when it comes to the final third. But in terms of progression and play, Derek mentioned it in his post-match interview at Walsall. He was disappointed with the way we moved the ball. We didn't move the ball fast enough. We weren't brave enough in the play. I think that was very much evident in the way we played against Huddersfield, albeit against some very quality players in the opposition. But Gillingham, I thought for coming into second half, I thought, do you know what? With the subs we made around the hour mark, I fancied us to take the game. I didn't see much evidence that Gillingham were any better than us. I thought for a squad that's very new, I think it was seven new starters for us. And I thought their passage of play, I thought there was a lot of positive to take from it. The one thing that's still lacking is the ability to put the ball in the net or just, make good a good cross or just final ball. And so overall, I came away a lot more positive than I did from Walsall and watched the game at Huddersfield.
James, I'll come to you now. We obviously, you see little snippets on the EFL highlights. Obviously, it's better to watch the full sort of highlights, etc. I was surprised they left out the Guion miss, which he was very close to, but obviously he showed the deflected Ben Tollett effort and also Jamie Stott, who didn't quite catch it right from a set piece. Looking at it now, it was probably a little bit more wind affected than we actually thought on the day, because we had the better of the first half with the wind, and they probably shaded it second half with the wind. And I didn't realise until I actually got outside the stadium the wind had whipped up because the tide was coming in. And you forget sometimes that can have an effect on it, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And as we talked about before, the wind goes in 4 different directions at the Mazuma. It comes in one corner and goes out another one, and it changes 5 minutes later. So it can confuse things. And my only comment on the game was actually something that Tom mentioned after the game, which I thought he was right on. And you know, Tom and Joel and me all talk about XG quite a lot, and I think it actually was a game where the XG didn't tell the full story. I'm stealing this right from Tom. But we were creating almost opportunities, which is not anywhere near as good at creating actual opportunities, but it's a damn sight more encouraging than just sitting in your own half and not getting the ball forwards at all. And there were 3 or 4 moments where the right ball, the right run actually could have created something quite dangerous. So I was the same as Tom, much more encouraged. I'd been encouraged by the defence against Walsall. I thought we were really solid at the back. I thought we were solid at the back again on Saturday, and we were just a bit more creative. And I think, you know, if we can show that level of improvement over the course of the next few games and maybe bring a player or 2 more in, then there's nothing to be pessimistic about at all.
And Joel, I'll come to you. I know we were all a little bit tense about Saturday, looking at their squad and feeling that Mark Bonner had done a pretty decent recruitment job there, because he basically cherry-picked people who were very, very good players in this division particularly, with an attempt to obviously usefully get them out of the division. That's fair enough. But looking at the actual game itself, I think you'd probably echo exactly what Tom and James have said there. We looked pretty good at the back. It was just really the sort of like final ball that was lacking, particularly second half, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought, I thought first half we were pretty. I think most people, I think anybody would probably agree that we were the better side. I think speaking to a Gillian fan or two, I think they've said the same. So I think, like a lot of people have said, it's just that final bit of play once we've gotten into the final third, because I thought the way we kind of moved the ball up the pitch, we got into those kind of dangerous looking areas was good, and it was really positive. But ultimately, you need to have that little bit of kind of quality and creativity in your decision making. Then when you make that decision, you need it's you know, playing that final pass with a bit of precision, knowing exactly how your teammates going to want the ball weighted and everything, and just having that precision and quality when you execute in the final third as well, to be able to really take advantage of those situations. And we probably didn't quite have that to capitalize on a lot of the good play in the first half. I thought the second half, maybe Gilliam did wrangle it a little bit back. I thought they started to get a bit more of a grip in midfield. But then I thought shortly before their goal, we started to look like we were turning it back in our favour, to be honest. I thought it was quite a positive move from Derek bringing Slew on for Tom White, because I think he put Tollett centrally and then moved Callum Jones back to the base of the field. And I thought Callum Jones and his quality on the ball was quite a positive addition. And I thought we weren't really getting hold of the ball in centre midfield, but when we moved Jones a bit deeper in that particular situation, I thought we did a little bit better, bit of a better job at that. And then obviously Slew, as he does off the bench, as we know from last season, you know, he can be so effective off the bench with that extra bit of physicality. But not only that, the ability to get hold of the ball, spin his man, and really kind of drive at defence and turn the defence. You know, it's a really good attribute to be able to bring on. And it looked like we were, you know, doing well off that. But then Gilliam, I think a Gilliam fan was telling me they had 8 injuries, but at the end of the day, they still had Ollie Hawkins and George Lapsley to bring on. I think ultimately they're probably the difference. I think having Ollie Hawkins, that big number 12 who came on as a direct option, gave them a bit of an extra dimension. I thought they were the striker they started with absolutely nothing out of Stott and Songo, whereas Hawkins managed to get all the ball a bit more. And then Lapsley, I thought, was excellent. I thought when he came on, he found pockets of space, pulled people about, got into good areas, and obviously the goal. It's to be quite frank, there's a big element of fortune about that. Jack Nolan's absolutely sliced a attempted cross shot volley. Not quite sure what he's doing. Probably a shot. Absolutely sliced it, shanked it, and it just about curves around from going well out for a goal kick. And then obviously
that's the win that James was talking about.
Yeah, and
but
that's the thing. It's played in their favour on that particular occasion, and yeah, it's frustrating, but yeah, I think you have to take positives in performance and maybe look at the team as a whole. I think it looks like, I think the way that we did work as a side and the way we were able to move the ball at the pitch, I think it does show that there's clearly some buy-in from the squad about how the team want to play, and they're starting to all understand what needs to be done and what will make this team a good team and a functioning team. But obviously, that being tight in the final third, it is sometimes you need a bit of magic. Maybe we need a bit more time to blend. Maybe we could do with another player or two kind of in those attacking midfield areas to give us a little bit more sparkle and just maybe finish things off, but finish the squad off. But yeah, big positives, to be honest. It's a real shame around the result, but performance-wise, it was definitely quite a big step in the positive direction compared to the opening 2 games of the season.
And it would be remiss of me not to mention the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is obviously 3 games, no goals. And that's when I come to... and there's been much discussion on the social media sites with the fact that Charlie Brown hasn't featured. Whether he's injured or not, obviously, we don't know. But I do feel a bit sorry for the lad because he's never really had the chance in front of Derek. Jed gave him his rein and played him right-hand side. And one fan made the point that, well, you couldn't play him on the right-hand side instead of Guion because Guion's better than he is. And I'd take that point. But I do think Charlie he showed enough from December to the end of the season, particularly with nipping the ball back off the fullback when he was least expecting it and starting attacks. And he's fairly direct, was Charlie. Sometimes, he may have delayed his crosses and only got a corner or stuff like that. But I just wonder what you feel about that, Tom. Obviously, Derek's happy to give at the moment the positions to Hallam and to Ben Tolley and bring on Angol. But I just feel a bit sorry that unless Charlie is injured, I just find it a bit strange he's not featuring in the match day squads.
So I'd firstly caveat all of this that Derek is far more qualified than I am to pick 11 at football. His record. But yeah, for me, Charlie, the bit that I think we're lacking personally as a fan watching is I feel like we're missing the point that James was making there that we've spoken about. Is there was times, particularly in that first half, Joel mentioned that there was some really good passage of play. It just didn't feel like we had a number 9 on the pitch that was making those runs into the position or having that little bit of spurt of pace that perhaps a Michael Mellon would have had if we get a loanee striker, if the budget would permit, or even Charlie. Charlie has got a little burst in him. He's still there.
Yeah, we're still here. Your picture's frozen, but we can hear you.
He's still there, guys.
Yeah. We can. Your picture froze, but we heard every word.
Okay. And then Charlie. Charlie, I don't believe he's injured. And I just don't really understand it. I'm really perplexed because, fair enough, we'll back Derek to decide that Hallam is his number 1 option. But I just find it strange that he wasn't involved on Tuesday because that would have been a really good opportunity to get some minutes into his legs. And I just think he would have given us a bit more, a bit more of an attacking threat. And I think under the back half of the season, he proved that he's quite lethal, given a chance. So that's a bit of a strange one. I can't quite get my head around that. As I said, it's only 2 games in, and Derek has a wonderful way of making the Mazuma home for people that are rejected from many a place, whether it be Nathaniel Knight Percival or God knows Jordan Slew. It's easy to look at the start of the creation, which is just a papier-mâché mess, and 2 games in to say it's not going to work. And then who knows in 10 games what those same players could produce. So I just think there's probably an element of patience to trust Derek. He's as good as you'll get in the business to do this. But if I was nakedly to look at the 2-3 games we've looked at, I think we look very deficit in the number 9 position and possibly the number 10 as well.
Yeah, I would agree. And I like the papier-mâché analogy there. That's very Blue Peter. Looking at
still hurts.
Looking at it in plain terms, James, 3 goals, 3 games, no goals. It isn't an ideal start, but we've been hard to beat in both league games.
Yeah, and you build a team from a defence, and when you're starting from scratch, effectively with a squad, which is what you're doing when you bring in 18 players in, you are effectively starting from scratch. It was interesting, I think, Titonda, he's a regular, he's not starting from scratch, and then you realise he's playing with a defence that he's never played with before. So he actually is starting from scratch. He's in a stadium he's used to, but he's not ever played with these players. So I think you build from the back, and I think we had too few games in. I honestly just completely scratched Huddersfield. You're playing against a team that's come down from the Championship. You lose 3-0 away from home. In those games, you typically get a win by scoring early and then shutting up shop. And again, as I said last week, we showed spirit in that game, but I'd just write that one off. We've played 2 teams that are thought to be there or thereabouts in terms of promotion contenders so far. One away, one at home. And we barely conceded a real chance against either. So I'm comfortable with it. I agree with all the things that Tom says, especially the papier-mâché bit. If you go back to the 2020-21 season, and some of the losses we suffered at the beginning of that season, 4-0 or 5-0 against teams like Crawley and Cambridge, and with that, I think that sandwiched an absolute hammering in the League Cup. And it felt at that point, it felt at that point like we were just going to get like a cricket score against us every week, and then that just gradually evolved into something else. So I just think we're 2 games in, we've only conceded 2 league goals. We've got to start scoring, but the defence is good.
And looking at the sadly the 2 to 3 months out for George Ray, Joel, that was bad news. Highly rated from Barrow. They were sad to lose him. He'd done the biz in pre-season. Him and Jamie Stott were building a useful partnership together there. But Derek's acted very, very swiftly in bringing in what looks like a fantastic prospect in Rhys Williams from Liverpool.
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise seeing that kind of coming to the end of the working day, then having a signing tease. And I think when I saw it teased, I was thinking it's either going to be somebody in the attacking midfield position or a centre back to fill in for George Ray. And yeah, I mean, it's a hell of a pedigree, a good few Champions League appearances and a good few Premier League appearances, and he did well for Liverpool in that time. I think in the couple of years since, it doesn't look like the loans he's been on have worked out.
No.
It looks like there's been some injury issues in there as well. So this might well just be like a bit of a arm around the shoulder kind of situation where he's been sent here to play games, and given his pedigree, I imagine he's probably going to be into the side pretty quickly, you'd imagine, and it might well be part of the agreement with Liverpool that he's going to play a few games. So it's nice to have somebody in who can just give us a little bit more defensive depth and security. Now we've got something like George Ray injured, because obviously, George Ray, I think he was shaping up as one of my favourite signings we've made this summer. I thought he was really impressive in pre-season, and in the 35 minutes we got of him against Walsall, I thought he did a good job as well. So good to have somebody in of that kind of quality and pedigree, and hopefully we are able to kind of give him that arm around the shoulder, let him kind of find his feet again and get his form back, and obviously push on in his career eventually.
It came as a bit of a surprise to all of us, like you say, 5 o'clock at the end of the day, Tom. But it has made sense. Ray looking like he's going to be out till possibly November at the earliest, and obviously we've got Rhys in to fill his position until January. So it seems like a decent fit, and apparently he's pretty rapid, he's pretty quick, which is quite useful.
Well, it's amazing how polarizing football can be, because I'm part of as the EFL geek I am, I do spend times with the NTT20 squad, and when he was signed, I heard 4 different groups of fans say how terrible he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do also chat to two people who work in football who said, what a solid signing for League Two. So
Yeah.
two people professionally in football said, really solid signing, just needs a run of games, got some really good potential. Yet the fans the other way. So I'm just like, we've heard it all before, bring him on. We make it home for him. So one thing that I did read, which I thought was interesting, was some people question his attitude, being a bit of a big Billy, so to speak.
You say Billy Big Bollocks, I don't mind.
You could do that, Freeze. But then I just thought, well, maybe Derek, cannot think in the time Derek's managed us that there's been one player that's really kind of alienated himself for being with an attitude issue. So I just wonder whether Derek goes, he will be well researched. He'll talk. He'll know. He'll have references. He'll always do references on checks on players, and that won't have gone amiss. He apparently was sent back early to a couple of the loans. So maybe it's Derek's turn to go, look, you're 23 years old. You're going to be soon. Get your head down, son. You've obviously got some ability, and we know that Derek is someone that likes to keep order and get players working as a unit together. And there's no one bigger than the team. So, I think it looks like potentially a nice little money ball signing, goes against the curve. Everyone thinks he's absolute dross, and then hopefully we can prove him wrong, and he becomes a Shrimp legend. But who knows? It's always the way when you're scrapping around with budget. On potentially a National League budget, you have got to take some risks now and then, and the calculated risks. And Derek will have done his research, and he'll feel confident he can add to the squad. And with Ray out injured, I think he's someone that can come in. I thought Songo did an excellent job on Saturday, really excellent job. Probably arguably our best player actually at centre back. He was just really calm, did the job. It just gives us a bit more flexibility, gives us another option, decent height on him. You're not going to get into Liverpool for that long if you don't have some element of pedigree. So let's see.
Well, obviously, welcome to the club race. I hope it does work out for you in the loan period. As Tom's alluded to there haven't been many people who've gone back to their home club with the tail between the legs. Most people have come and enjoyed the time with us, and quite a few have gone on to have fairly decent careers, haven't they? So fair enough. But I wanted to talk, as we're sort of like just approaching the 20-minute mark. Obviously, I want to talk about Saturday's game away at Doncaster, and I'm aware that I may have over-egged the pudding with Gillingham's squad. And I'm looking at Doncaster's squad, and I'm determined not to do the same. But I will just mention Billy Sharp, Joe Ironside, and Ephraim Yeboah up front, and he's on loan from Bristol City, and obviously they've got the prolific Luke Molyneux sat in just behind him, and I'm like, blimey, and it's going to be an interesting one. As season starters go, James, it's been the three pretty tough games, aren't they? The league games, because away at Donny. The way they just systematically took us apart in just after Easter was showing that they were on I think they went 9 games straight to get themselves in the playoffs, and then obviously ran out of steam against Crewe. But I mean, that's just the way it goes, isn't it? But looking at them, he did some good business in January, and I have to say, when you come down to it, he's got the experience as their manager. And he's got the experienced squad there, so it is going to be a tough game. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, it probably will be, and there's no question in the fact that they were fantastic in the second half of last season. Like truly one of the most meteoric rises of any team I've seen for years. From being pretty poor actually for a lot of the first half of the season. So I agree, good business in January, excellent second half of the season. Will have felt legitimately hard done by not to have made it through the playoffs, given how much on form they were. But it's a new season, and they could be singing, or they might not be. And I don't know. I try not to look too much at the other teams, because when you always going to look at the other team and think, well, they spent more money than us, they might have some really good players. I'd rather leave that to Derek and the analysts and enjoy the game and not worry about the apparent quality of the squad that we're facing.
Well, that's it's a nice way to look at it, but obviously I have to look at it because I've got to have something to talk about. So I have to mention it. And looking at it, Joel, like I've alluded to, the first 3 games, as soon as it came out of the hat, I was thinking, well, they're going to be pretty tough because they've all invested over the summer and they've all got far more money than we have, as you've said, James. So it's never going to be easy, but you just don't know what's going to happen with this division, do you? Because like Tom's already said, Derek's massaging his paper mache team together, and it might just gel on Saturday.
Yeah, very, very possibly. I mean, you look at the squad, and I think what's interesting to look at, obviously, Grant McCann's a very good manager, and they've put together a strong squad. At the same time, and obviously, what you tend to, I think it's always a wise idea to look at people who perform well at the back end of the previous season when you're making predictions for a new season. But what a couple of interesting things to look at are maybe that. I think I think Doncaster will be right up there. They've got a good manager, got a good squad. Although they are missing a couple of the key players they brought in January, who kind of made them really tick. Is obviously the goalkeeper Lo Tutala and Hakeem Adelukan as well, who's actually without a club still, I think. But despite that,
he went there and did brilliantly, didn't he?
Yeah, so who knows what's going on there. But despite that, obviously they've got people like Richard Wood anchoring at the back. I think that was part of their rise as well. I think he was injured first half of last season for the most part, but obviously him coming back is massive to have in League Two. But then, like you say, you've got people like Molyneux up from Joe Ironside. I think Joe Sabara from the National League's a good sign. I don't think he's played a full 90 yet, but he'll be good, and he's a good weapon to have for them as well. So there's some really good players, but at the same time, like, that's what we said about Gilliam, and we matched them pretty well. Going away, obviously, it's a bit of got away from home. It's a bit of a different prospect, but we have steadily improved, and hopefully we can just continue that improvement. It might be another tough Saturday against a good side, but we've just got to keep chugging away with the performances and improving and trying to build and work on Jelly in the final third, and just having a bit more precision in those moments of quality, and hopefully, we might be able to get a bit of joy against a strong Doncaster team, but ultimately one who's beatable. They've gone to Newport the weekend, and Newport, a lot of people's favourites relegation, not got the strongest squad. They've got a very, very untested manager, and Newport have ended up winning 3-1. So they're not invincible. So yeah, hopefully we can kind of continue the improvement and give them a proper game.
And just if Derek's listening, did you say Adelican's still free?
Yeah, I kind of almost get the feeling he might be holding out for a League One move, and that's why he's not managed to find anywhere yet. But yeah, maybe. What's that?
Can we say that about Guillaume?
Yeah, we did, to be fair. So
that's true. That's true.
Exactly.
So, yeah. But a pro contract's a pro contract, isn't it? So
yeah, you're right.
Hakeem, if you're listening,
yeah, come and get some game time. Yeah. We get some game time.
Add Derek on LinkedIn, and yeah.
Yeah, good shout. Yeah, good shout. So just before we finish off, I want to take something, because I know me being the decrepit old fossil that I am, and James sort of like being sort of like a lot younger than me, and you two being miles younger than me. I want to come back to the something that James touched on, because I thought it was a really interesting comment from Kevin De Bruyne this week about the XG, and it was an interesting comment from him saying, I take risks with my passes, so my XG probably isn't as good as it could be, but it's because I'm playing through balls and I always look forward. And I think it's a fair comment, that, in the fact that you can judge quite a lot about a player, as you said already, Tom, Moneyball, that you can judge a lot about a player from that. But the other side of it is, I think De Bruyne makes a point in the fact that a lot of his passes are intercepted because he's trying to play the killer ball, and sometimes he doesn't make it. And he made that point. I wonder how you felt about that, Tom.
Yeah, 100%. Our gaffer in charge of the team, will be biggest advocate of that. It's like passing it around the back is not making any penetrating passes. It's just kind of vanity, really. So I think I'm just trying to remember Kevin De Bruyne's quote. I think it was about he doesn't look at pass completions, because pass completions are just knocking it back and forth. Man City at the Etihad, they'll do that all day, every day. But what Guardiola would likely be doing is looking at how many passes get into the right positions and take players out of play. And I think to us mere mortals at times, we can kind of pick at a stat and then make a narrative out of that. And I think
it's creating the openings, isn't it? It's creating the opportunities. I get that. I do get that, and I think that's a fair point. But like I say, it was an interesting point that De Bruyne was making, the fact that he's, he realised that his statistics could be better, but he's the one who tries to play the killer passes, and I think that's,
a great example of this was I remember when I was religiously watching. I won't admit it, but sometimes watching games back when I was in deepest darkest Peru, I'd watch a game. And people I'd read on like Shrimp's Voices or something say Adam Phillips, God, he was brilliant that first half.
I was just about to mention exactly that.
I was thinking Adam Phillips as well.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. I must have been a game where he probably touched the ball about 3 or 4 times, but he just played a killer assist. And you're like, to be fair, your job is and ultimately it depends what your role is. So let's say you can't look at, obviously, let's take a really extreme example. You can't compare Jan Songu's job to Phillips's job, right? They just do completely different things. So it's just like, I think you can get, you could get a pass completions and no shocks. It's like the defenders will have lots of pass completions, centre backs knocking it back to the keeper, to the full backs and stuff like that. Just different roles. And I just think some people will be cringing when the likes of Joel, James and I will be talking about being careful with statistics because they say throw XG in the bin and all these kind of things. But I think you just got to be really careful with what narratives you take from statistics. You can kind of manipulate it. And again, the point we're trying to make on the game on Saturday, it's like, I think we all fall into that trap, Joel and I particularly, is sometimes you literally scan through League Two and you'll be like, oh, right, the XG of this, these guys are playing well or not playing well. And I think you can almost fall into the trap of making narratives without, sometimes you actually do need to marry up with your eyes and actually see what's happening at the game as well. So I think, sorry to go off on a complete tangent, but when I was doing like really a lot of analysis on players and teams and things like that, before I'd look at any of the stats, I'd watch a couple of games and just be like, okay, who stands out without having any bias about what anyone has told me or anything like that. And then I'd look at the stats after it, because I think it's really dangerous to look at stats and then watch a game, because you can sometimes...
You're trying to make them fit. Yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of like massage or like force in a narrative based on the stats that you're reading, and your eyes can see something that perhaps isn't always there. So... so you just got to be really careful, I think, with stats and how you can analyze a game. But, we're not able to go and watch 50 games at a weekend. You've got to do it somehow. So it's just a balance, really. In a rambly way, I think one of my learnings is you just got to be really critical with stats and not kind of overuse them, but they can also be used for a lot of good if you always kind of are curious and don't go too strong on stats as well at the same time.
Yeah, you've got to not pigeonhole anything or anybody. I do understand that, and I understand because of your online stuff that you did and Joel's interested in him. It's got me interested in him as well. But I tend to I tend to see it with my own eyes, and we all sit and watch a lot of football at this level. And that's how, that's when you come to the people who've stood out over the years, in the last 3 or 4 seasons. And that's when Doncaster are like, oh my God, they've signed about 4 people that you thought, he's a good lad. And Gillingham were the same. So it's fairly understandable. But following on from that, I'll come back to you, Joel, quickly now. Tom said, obviously, Jan played particularly well. I thought he did, and I thought Chitonda was absolutely outstanding, and rightly got the man of the match, because I thought he was composed, he was great on the ball, and his talking was absolutely superb on Saturday. And I was chuffed a bit when he got man of the match. What are your thoughts, Joel?
Yeah, I think for me, probably Tutonda and maybe Stu Moore as well have been our two strongest performers at the start of the season. I thought Tutonda, considering he's had some pretty, what on paper looks like pretty strong competition brought in at left back for him, he's really stepped up, and I feel like he's taking things up again. I think he's been really, really fantastic first couple of games. Like you say, Jan's been brilliant. So yeah, it's good to see people we've had from last season still kicking on and putting in with really good performances. And yeah, just to kind of circle back a little bit, actually, just on some of the stuff with Tom saying, take the XG from Saturday, just for example, and kind of just to pick apart how it can be useful, but how it can also be like a little bit misleading. I think it got mentioned before. I think it was FotMob's got it 0.62 for us, 1.27 for them, which sounds like they bossed us, but they didn't really. And they're the one, but then you kind of dig it into it a bit further, and their goals worth 0.83. So you take that off from that one single chance, which has come from a shanked cross, and it's a bit more even, which is probably a fairer representation of the game. But at the end of the day, there's, like Tom said, you've only got so much time in the day in your personal life to be able to kind of watch games, and obviously, as we all know, it costs money, obviously, to access certain tools and things, and it's difficult to keep up. And so, while yeah, it can be a good overview, I think, like Tom said, just critique and doubt, not doubt, but critique the things that you read, and try and weigh it up against other things you've seen and other things you've heard from maybe in-person accounts, and just kind of use all the information you can to try and build a picture. But yeah, and just be cautious with the information that you get. But it's hard to ever be truly right, because you can watch somebody on the day and they can have a stinker. Like I thought Jack Nolan was awful.
He was. He was. He was.
And
I was sat there exactly the same. Exactly the same.
I thought he was, when we played Accrington at their place last season, I thought he was god awful there, but he's got 25 goal contributions last season with Gillingham signed him. So look, you just basically. It's just hard. It's just hard to ever really know for sure with people and players and games. But yeah, you just got to try and keep taking on as much information as you can and try and build an accurate picture.
There was about 3 times when Nolan crossed it, and obviously the third one led to a goal because he shanked it, but the other 2 went out for goal hits. And we were all laughing, going, "I bet the chuffed a bits they signed him because he's been crap." And then of course he inadvertently sets a goal up, but that's the way it is, isn't it? So.
I think sorry to step in, just wanted to elaborate on what Joel was saying. I think the other thing as well I've got to remember in football, what makes it such an amazing game to watch is it's such low margin. It's like, I don't think really XG is designed to like go into the nth degree that we do. Like, it's really tempting to look at the fact that we had double the XG open play that Gillingham had and things like that. But I think it means when you're talking about the stats are so low, that a shanked cross can really distort the numbers. Yeah. I think in some ways you need to look at XG, for example, on a 5 or 10 game basis to look at
exactly
trends as opposed to
that's
moments. It's just not. I don't think it's almost like, I don't know. I think almost falling into the trap of it, and I'm 100% guilty of it. Football is so marginal that. Even like you just mentioned about a player, and we'll go away, that Nolan's rubbish. We've seen 2 games of him. He's clearly not a rubbish player because he's been picked up with one of the best players and with one of the highest budgets in League 2. But maybe on that particular day, his girlfriend had a massive row with him, and because he'd not got the right Warburton's bread, and he's come to the wrong mindset that game, and Morecambe fans think he's terrible that Saturday. And it just so happens the next Saturday, he's had a really bad night's sleep because there's been a party next door. Do you know? I'm just making obviously crazy scenarios up, but it's so low margin that we as fans, we're not watching the opposition players for 30 odd games a season, they can't draw conclusions based off the fact of about 10 actions of a football game, because it's just such a small amount of data to do it. And I just think we're allowed to, because we're football fans, we're allowed to be completely illogical, and that's what's good about it. But it's just, if we're going to have any proper analysis on it, you've got to also realise that football is such low margin, and I think we're doing ourselves a disservice if we don't kind of acknowledge that.
To reference 2 or 3 things we talked about on, I agree with you, Tom. One thing, every opposition fan that gauges a player, typically most of them are gauging them on how they play for their one team, probably for no more than one season, because if they didn't perform, they probably weren't there for much longer. And that's as much down to system, whether they got on with the dressing room, who the captain was, whether they were fit that year, whether they were actually carrying an injury that nobody knew about, blah, blah, blah. So that's a great example of people like saying, he's awful, because I saw him 6 times on a Saturday and he didn't do what I wanted him to do. And then similarly on the XG is a brilliant stat when it's taken out over a career or a season or a 10 game block, as Tom says. It's useless for a single game unless the difference is enormous and actually you've got enough data to say, yeah, we got a proper battering there. So it is the whole thing is a bit of a metaphor for society if you think about it, because what's gone on over the course of the last few years is people feel like they've got a lot of information and a lot of statistics, and then they draw conclusions from those statistics and the information they've been given. But there's no critical literacy. There's no going and checking what you've been told or what you've heard, and that's hits us really hard as a society in the last few weeks. So I think a lot of it comes down to a need to almost, in an age where we've got more information and we're given more data, we need to almost reteach ourselves the importance of critical literacy, because that's what enables us to take information and form a worthwhile conclusion. And I'm not sure, until somebody reminded me of it as a phrase, I'm not sure, I think it just passed out my mind, probably from 10 and 20 years ago. So yeah, we need more critical literacy in everything.
And just the addendum is, if Warburton's want us to send us a toasty loaf each for that free advertising that Tom gave them, I for one will accept that, because for me, Warburton's toasty loaf with lashings of salted butter and golden shred is absolutely spot on. Anyway,
wonderful.
James, you've got some updates for us, I believe.
Yeah, just 2 or 3 bits of news. The more eagle-eyed companies, house watchers, will have spotted today that there was a conversion of 78,000 shares. That's very simply an attempt to give Derek some money to play with. We're not able to just put money into the club and give Derek money to spend. It has to pass the SCMP guidelines, and therefore the reason for that conversion today was to give Derek a little bit to play with. It's for him to decide what to do with that, but hopefully that will enable 1 or 2 strengthenings over the course of the next few days. So that's good news. The second bit of really good news is really just a shout out to Quinny, to Matt, to everybody who's been behind putting the new program together. Last year's sort of whatever it was, 5 or 10 game block magazine, it wasn't a success. People didn't like it. It wasn't received well. We've heard the feedback, and therefore the right notes is an attempt to fill that gap. And I thought it was a really good copy on Saturday, and it's just good that the contributions are coming in, as these should do in a programme from far and wide, including the Trust. So a big thanks to the guys for putting that together, and hopefully fans appreciate that we've listened and there's a programme come back. The key thing on that is buy it, and don't just like nick it or pick up free copies from hospitality, because if we can't make some small amount of money from it, then it's a waste of time. So if you want a programme, buy the thing. And then the third just really bit of good news is just to say a big thanks and a big shout out to Liam Roberts, who's obviously had a few challenges over the course of the last few months, but he's now looking after the academy from the media perspective, having been quietly doing an awful lot of graphics and stuff in the background for us. So just a shout out from the team behind the scenes to Liam. You're doing a cracking job. We appreciate everything you've done over the course of the last few years. And it's just really, really good to have you covering the academy side of things.
And on that note, join us again next week when we will have a guest from the club. It's been an interesting start to the season. We will be reviewing the Doncaster game when we remain eternally positive, but it'd be nice to score a goal, chaps, wouldn't it? Just a goal, just one teensy little goal. would be lovely. Even better if it's a 1-0 win. So thanks to Tom from Colombia with his shirt on. Thanks to James with his Mexican shirt on. I'm afraid my Muse shirt is, it's still there. And Joel, he's normally wearing some colours of other, but he's got his work stuff on. So Joel, you were probably the most adult and boring that I've seen you so far. It's usually me that's the boring one. Thanks for listening or watching. Join us again next week for yet more insight into what's going on at Morecambe Football Club on ShrimpNet.